Number 24, students are given data from an investigation that identifies some of the chemical elements present in 4 different samples. The element samples, so here we go. Elements present in the samples. Samples 1, 2, 3, and 4. In sample 1, hydrogen, phosphorus, and nitrogen. In sample 2, the elements are aluminum, silicon, and copper. In sample 3, the elements are calcium, potassium, and nitrogen. In sample 4, the elements are iron, oxygen, and magnesium. Which sample was most likely DNA? All right, so remember the 4 biochemicals, the biomolecules. Okay, we have the protein, we have the lipids, we have the carbohydrates, and we have the nucleic acids. Okay, DNA is one of the nucleic acids. They all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Protein also has phosphorus, and nucleic acids have nitrogen and phosphorus. Because of the nitrogen base, okay, the ATCG, nitrogen. So which sample was most likely DNA? So we're looking for these elements. So this isn't even biological. Calcium, potassium, nitrogen, iron, oxygen. So here we have it. Hydrogen, phosphorus, nitrogen. So sample 1 was most likely DNA. Question number 25. Saprophytes are fungi that feed on dead and decomposing organisms. They secrete enzymes that digest the components of cell walls, such as cellulose and lignin. Which statement explains why these fungi are an important part of the biogeochemical cycle? All right, so looking at this. We're dealing with a fungi. It's a decomposer because it feeds on dead and decomposing organisms. It secretes enzymes to do the digestion, so external digestion. External digestion, such as cellulose and lignin. Well, cellulose, you should know from our notes. This is what plant cell walls are made out of. So if it can dissolve the plant cell wall, then this fungi can eat a plant. It can digest those cell walls so it can decompose plants. Lignin I haven't taught you, but you probably don't have to know. So let's see there. Saprophytes perform gas exchange that assists other cellular activities in autotrophs. Okay. Gas exchange, that's oxygen and carbon dioxide exchanging gas. That's usually what lungs do. So it doesn't mention anything about that. So we're going to... Saprophytes extract minerals from living tissue. It feeds on dead and decomposing things, so not living tissues. Saprophytes transport nutrients through the xylem and the phloem in autotrophs. Xylem and phloem are the vascular system for plants. Remember, xylem transports water and phloem transports sugar, whether it's glucose or sucrose. Okay, so that doesn't say anything about that. So saprophorates return organic material to the soil for use by living organisms. That right there, return organic matter to the soil for the use by living organisms, is the definition of a decomposer. So, there's your answer. Because it feeds on dead and decomposing organisms, and as it does that feeding, it will return the organic matter to the soil for use by living organisms. Those living organisms, usually we're talking about plants that will absorb that organic material. So that is definitely an answer. Number 26. An advertisement for a health supplement for dogs claims to build lean muscle and strengthen tendons and ligaments as well as provide energy. Which two biomolecules must the supplement contain to provide these benefits? All right, so let's look at these options here. Build lean muscle and strengthen tendons and ligaments is one claim. Provide energy is another claim. When we're dealing with the biomolecules, okay? The 4 biomolecules, okay? Which one builds lean muscle? So when we're dealing with building muscle, strengthening tendons and ligaments, we are describing protein. And providing energy is carbohydrates. Lipids can provide energy, but it's a slow release energy, not a quick energy. So quick energy is what carbohydrates do. Lipids do slow energy. So the obvious answer, where we have both of them together, G. That is the correct answer for the question. So again, for this one, you need to know what your biomolecules, what their functions are. Number 27, scientists have observed many types of tropical fish moving beyond their traditional ocean ranges into waters that have historically been more temperate. Okay, these fish compete for food with native fish, consuming much of the kelp forests and beds of seagrass. The expansion of ranges of tropical fish was most likely caused by, tropical fish live in warm water. More temperate means less warm. Historically, so in the past, less warm. So slightly cooler waters, traditionally, in the past, they've been slightly cooler waters. But they've observed these tropical fish moving into these warm water fish, moving to places where the water is usually too cold for them. And it's causing some problems. We have that competition with the native fish consuming that competition, so that consuming, competing for limited resources. Okay. What was the cause? Okay. The expansion of the ranges of the tropical fish. So the fact that the tropical fish are now found in more areas, what's the cause of that? Is it agricultural runoff? So this is that water that comes off of fields. So when you water crops, the extra water that runs off, that's agricultural runoff. Contributing to dead zones in the ocean. Does it say anything about dead zones? Nah. All right, global drought. Drought means not enough water. Not enough rain, I should say. Not enough rain. That raised the salt concentration of ocean waters. Okay, so it's talking about salt concentration here. Does it say anything about salt concentration or rain there? No. Rising temperatures of ocean waters. Are we talking about temperature of the water changing? Absolutely. Okay. Acid rain pollution lowers the pH of the ocean waters. Are we talking about pH? No. So, we're talking about temperature. All right. And by the way, acid rain, acid is low pH. Okay, so lowering the pH, just to clarify why it says that. All right. Next question. The diagram shows light and dark colored beetles that live on a tree. We have a predator and prey relationship. Prey, predator, because he, the predator, eats the beetles. Yummy, yummy. Now, if you're a bird and you look at that tree, which beetles are the first ones you see? Those darker ones. Which result is most likely to occur to the beetle population due to predation over time? So, the beetle population, because of the birds, over time, what's going to happen to that beetle population? Because of the birds that eat them. Well, give enough time. Will the number of light-colored beetles in the population increase? That would make sense, because the number of these is going to decrease. There will be more dark-colored beetles than light-colored beetles. We're definitely going to have less dark-colored beetles. The number of light-colored beetles isn't going to decrease, it's going to increase. The dark-colored beetles will move to a different type of tree. No, because they don't have the intelligence that they need to know that they need to be camouflaged. Nature just camouflages them. So that, I'm going to put that word in there. Camouflage. And I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. Pretty sure I spelled that wrong. Anyways, camouflage. They are camouflaged against that tree. The lighter ones are. The dark ones aren't. So, we're definitely going to have the black beetles get eaten first. The dark beetles get eaten before the light beetles. So with time, we're going to definitely have more light-colored beetles than dark-colored beetles. All right. In cattle. Okay. Cattle. Cows. The allele for cloven hooves is dominant. So cloven hooves, this split hoof here, is dominant over the allele for mule foot hooves. So these are mule foot hooves. Like a horse, it has just one, not two. Okay? The phenotype, physical appearance, for each trait is shown in the picture. So here we go. This is what cloven hooves look like. This is what mule foot hooves look like. What is the probability of cloven hooves in the offspring of parents that are heterozygous for the trait? Okay, heterozygous. So here we go. So we are dealing with a cross. First, we have to do the key. Dominant, cloven, recessive, mule foot. Okay. Cross. Well, we have to know what this heterozygous means. Remember, heterozygous means they're different. So one dominant, one recessive, that's going to be the heterozygous. It means that the two alleles are different. Okay? Parents. So both of the parents, ambos, both parents are heterozygous. So my cross both parents are heterozygous. Now for my Punnett square, there's one parent, there's my other parent. That box is represented by an offspring that got the dominant allele from both parents. The offspring next to it got a dominant from the parent to the side, got a recessive from the parent above. The offspring that's represented by this box got dominant from the parent above and recessive from the parent to the side. And this offspring representing the last box got a recessive allele from both parents. Okay, so now analysis. This genotype. Okay, so that genotype is 25%. So homozygous dominant, 25%. Heterozygous, 50%. Homozygous recessive, 25%. And if you're looking at phenotypes, these two are the same phenotype because that's dominant and that's dominant. They'll look the same. They'll have the same physical appearance. So 75% have this dominant phenotype. 25% will have the recessive phenotype, mulefoot. Okay? Back to the question. Probability of cloven hooves. Cloven hooves, that dominant, 75%. Cloven hooves. Those 3 out of 4, 75% will have cloven hooves. There you go. A corn plant produces both male and female flowers. Okay, so a corn plant produces male and female flowers. The male flower forms the tassels. Okay, so here we go. The tassels are these things right here. They've got the pollen on them, and they call this the male flower. That makes sense because it has the pollen. Remember, pollen is flower sperm. Okay? The silks that emerge from the ear of the stigma are the female flower. Okay? So that thing, the silks from the ear, so they're labeling everything right here. This is the female flower. All right. I think we kind of understand the image. Which of these must happen for the corn seeds to develop on the ear? Well, in order for seeds to develop, they need to be fertilized. Fertilized means that we get the pollen to the stigma. Even if it's a completely different looking flower than you usually see in our diagrams for flowers and fertilization, okay? Flowers and pollination, I should say. We still need to get the pollen to the stigma, okay? This is the male gamete to get to the stigma where it's going to find the female, where it's going to be transported to the female gamete. Okay, so in order for this pollen to get to here so it can go down the little tubes down to each one of those pieces of corn is a separate seed, so there's a silk for each piece of corn. Here we go. More tassels than silks need to be present on the same plant. Okay. Pollen grains must fall from the tassels and land on the silks of the ear. Okay, so pollen grains must fall from the tassels and land on the silks of the ear, transferring from here to here. That's exactly what we're talking about. So, okay, so this grains from tassel to silk. Pollen grains from tassel to silk. The pollen must be transported from the tassel to the silk through the phloem. The phloem, all right, if you remember about plants, this transports, but it transports sugar, like glucose or sucrose. The phloem is not going to be transporting pollen grains, okay? The tassels must come into direct contact with the silks of the ear. I don't know how it plans on doing that. I've never seen the plant bow over like that, and that's not how they work anyways. So the answer is definitely G. Okay, so that idea of fertilization, you kind of like gravity, just drop those down. Or you can have some pollination by some insects or some wind to help that out. All right. Number 31. Adaptations. All right. So, traits that help an organism survive better. Okay, that's what an adaptation is. That result from natural selection are expected to increase the fitness of an organism. Okay, so there we go. Increase the fitness, basically making it better for survival. In terms of natural selection, which of the following best describes fitness? What's fitness mean? Okay, able to escape predators. That could apply to maybe a deer, but not all predator. But not always are you escaping from a predator. Be among the strongest organisms in the population. Okay, so being able to escape for some, being strong might be for some other species. Okay, able to survive, find a mate, and produce offspring. Okay, that kind of encompass all of it. Being able to survive long enough to reach the adult stage. Okay, sometimes that might be about luck. Surviving long enough to reach the adult stage, that could be an issue of luck. But being able to survive, find a mate, and produce offspring is really what fitness includes. Because if you can't find a mate, even if you're an adult, you're not going to pass your genetics on. So the answer is definitely C, because it includes all of those aspects. It's not just survive. This is just surviving, but surviving, finding a mate, and producing offspring is the total point of fitness. Okay. Sorry, this one's been marked up already, but it's okay. In the early 1900s, Thomas Hunt Morgan was among the first scientists to contribute to the chromosome theory of heredity. Morgan's investigations into heredity in fruit flies led him to propose that the event represented in the diagram sometimes occurs. Okay, so the description here is to help you, because that image is a little vague. So, to kind of get you an idea of what you might be looking at, chromosome theory of heredity. We are looking at chromosomes. This image represents chromosomes. So, this idea that you have 2 chromosomes, okay? And they're colored, but I'm going to color them as well, just to kind of help with the image here. Chromosomes. And they kind of are wrapping around each other. And then we end up with this chromosome. We end up with these. So what was an all yellow and an all purple is now purple with yellow and purple, and then yellow with purple and yellow. So we've mixed up the DNA. This process of mixing DNA, when we're talking about heredity, this is the crossing over. This is the recombination. So this process right here is crossing over. That happens in meiosis. The process of making gametes. And remember, your gametes are your sperm and your eggs. So we're mixing up the DNA so that each offspring has unique combination of DNA. So it doesn't matter how many kids you got, how many children you have, each one will get a unique combination of DNA from you. Okay? So which statement about the event represented in the diagram is valid? Okay. Is this RNA translation? All right. This is only DNA. This is all about DNA, so it's not that answer. This event takes place in bacterial cells. Bacterial cells, okay? This process, in the end, these are going to separate. One's going to go to one gamete, one's going to go to another. This is for sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction only happens in multicellular organisms. This is unicellular. Which means it's asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction doesn't create gametes. The event produces genetically identical daughter cells. Well, you already can see I crossed that one out. They're different, genetically unique daughter cells. So the event provides genetic diversity in eukaryotic cells. Okay? So that genetic diversity, each gamete has unique DNA. All right, gamete being what will be eventually the offspring. Okay, so that's the whole purpose of crossing over. All right, number 33. The human body is composed of organ systems. Which list represents a system organized from least to most complex? So least complex to the most complex. Okay, so, okay, least complex to most complex. So this is combining the idea of organ systems, and it's combining, but it's mostly having to do with, they're kind of confusing, they're trying to confuse you there, organ systems. But in reality, it's asking you a question about the levels of organization of life. All things, all forms of life are organized into levels, starting at the simplest of an atom, and then biomolecules, and then a cell, and then a tissue, and then cell. We're going through those. So the larger it is, usually the more complex. The smaller it is, usually the less complex. So starting with something really, really small. All right, a heart, cardiac muscle, cardiac tissue, muscle cell. We're going from complex, we're going from most complex to least complex here. Lung tissue, trachea, nostrils, circulatory system. Okay, so lung tissue, trachea, nostrils, but this is not the circulatory system. This is describing the respiratory system. Okay, so that's out, even though this is going from least to most. That's describing the wrong system. Okay, muscle cell, muscle tissue, biceps muscle, muscular system. So this is going from least to most, and we have the right system. Integumentary system, skin cell, hair, sweat glands. This isn't a sequence, this is just a list. All right, these all are varying. Hair, sweat glands, not the same thing. So, but these are all just parts of the integumentary system. So that doesn't work. Our best answer is definitely this one. So the muscular system, from least to most complex levels of organization, and it's all the same correct system.